I knew something had broken the moment I saw the photo, but it wasn't just my leg. I was lying in a hospital bed wrapped in stiff white sheets. One leg in a cast ribs, bandaged so tight I could barely breathe. Painkillers dulling the sharp edge of everything except the ache in my chest. That part was untouched, raw. My best friend Anastasia was next to me scrolling through her phone quietly, trying to pretend like the world outside this hospital didn't exist. But then her face changed. She froze, lips pressed together, eyes wide. I knew that look. Something was wrong. "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated, shook her head a little. "Nothing. Don't worry about it. It's stupid." I didn't wait. I grabbed her phone. Not my proudest moment, but I was high on meds and heartbroken and tired of being lied to. And there it was. A photo of Richard, my boyfriend of 4 years, smiling at a party arm around his ex. The caption: "Finally free from the needy drama queen and her constant demands." The needy drama queen was me. I stared at the screen like it wasn't real, like maybe I was misreading it, maybe it was a bad joke, but then I saw the comments. "Glad you're happy, bro. You dodged a bullet." She was always too much. No one asked about me. No one said, "Wait, isn't your girlfriend in the hospital right now?" I didn't comment. I didn't text him. I didn't cry. I just shut down. Like a switch had been flipped, and suddenly I wasn't the girl in love anymore. I was just tired. We'd been together for 4 years, 4 birthdays, 4 Christmases, 4 years of shared toothpaste and tangled bed sheets and me paying rent while he found himself. We met at a community garden project my company sponsored. I was assigned to the compost team. Richard was the self-appointed compost king. I'm not kidding. He wore a name tag and gave a speech about how breaking down is the first step toward new life. I thought it was charming. In hindsight, it was a warning, because the only thing breaking down in our relationship was me. He helped with rent 7 times in 4 years. He never got his name on the lease because of credit issues. He was between jobs at least 60% of the time. When he did have money, it went to his gaming setup,
That's exactly
his
what
craft beer
happened to me on my
collection, or
birthday
his
night.
monthly mental
I was
health
standing there
retreats with
in
the
the
middle
boys,
of my own living
which
room,
was just
surrounded
code
by
for bar
people I
hopping
loved,
and me,
or at least
I covered
thought I
rent,
loved.
groceries, bills,
And everything
I even
felt
let
like
him
it
use
was
my car
suspended
more
in
than he
slow
asked me how
motion.
my day was.
There was music
But I
playing,
loved him.
the soft clinking
God,
of glasses.
I loved him.
Little
So I
bursts
made
of laughter
excuses.
floating
He
in
has
the air.
potential.
And
He's
yet,
just
in my
struggling.
head,
He'll
there was only
change. He
silence.
didn't.
The
I had
accident
spent
happened
weeks
on a
planning
rainy
that
Wednesday.
evening,
Someone
decorating
ran
the
a red
apartment
light
with
and
little
slammed into
twinkle
the side of
lights,
my car.
ordering my favorite
Everything
cake,
went black for a
choosing the
moment, and
perfect
when I woke
playlist,
up, I
and
was
more
in
than
the
that,
ER.
I had
My
spent
leg
weeks
shattered,
planning the
ribs
announcement.
fractured, and a doctor
secret
telling
I
me
had been
I was
holding
lucky
so tightly
I
to
didn't
my
feel
chest.
lucky.
I was pregnant.
Richard visited me
I
once.
thought that night was
20
going
minutes.
to be the beginning
He
of
said,
a beautiful new
"Hospitals make me
chapter.
anxious." He told me
Instead,
he
it
needed time
turned
to
out to be the
process the
start of an
trauma, the
unraveling I
trauma
never
that
saw
happened to me.
coming.
Justin,
Anastasia
my
was the
boyfriend
one who
of 3
stayed by my
years,
side.
stood
She
up,
slept in that
tapped his
awful
glass,
hospital
and gave
chair
this
for 3
speech about how
nights.
special
She
I
helped me
was.
to the bathroom,
He
brought
looked me
real
straight
food,
in the
and even
eyes,
washed my hair in
smiling
the
that
tiny
easy,
sink.
confident
That's what love
smile
looks
that
like.
used to make
Not
my heart
selfies
race.
with your ex while
He
your
handed me a
girlfriend is
small,
immobilized.
perfectly wrapped
And
box.
still, part of
My
me
heart
wondered,
practically
was I
jumped out of my
overreacting?
chest. I
Until I
actually
remembered
thought
my
maybe
name
he was
is
the
the
only
only
one on the lease
I
I'd
even
been
wondered
covering
if I
rent
should
for
still
months.
go through
He
with the
didn't even bring
pregnancy
me a change
announcement
of
after a
clothes.
proposal.
That photo,
Silly, right?
the one of him
I opened the
grinning
box
free from
with
his
shaking
drama
hands.
queen, that was the
Everyone
final
leaning
crack.
in.
The
Some
moment
already
everything
recording with
collapsed.
their
I had
phones.
loved him through
Inside
unemployment,
wasn't a ring.
laziness,
It wasn't
emotional
anything
neglect.
but a small
I
folded
had
note.
defended him,
I remember
supported
staring,
him,
paid for him.
and he discarded me like garbage while I was lying in a hospital bed broken. I want to ask you something honestly. Have you ever loved someone so much you lost sight of yourself? Because that was me. Until this moment. The first few days after I got out of the hospital were quiet, not peaceful, not calm, just quiet, like the kind of quiet after a storm when everything is still wet, broken, and no one knows what to do next. Anastasia let me stay in her guest room while I recovered, and I remember just lying there staring at the ceiling, asking myself one question over and over. How did I let it get this bad? I wasn't just heartbroken, I was humiliated. 4 years, 4 whole years of my life gone. And for what? A guy who bailed when I needed him the most and called me a needy drama queen to the world. The thing is, it didn't start off this way. In the beginning, Richard was charming. He was goofy, passionate about the most random things, and had this way of making everything sound like it had meaning. Even compost. He said things like, "We're all just breaking down so we can grow into something better." And I believed him. I thought he was deep. Turns out he was just unemployed and good at making excuses sound poetic. But even now, after everything, there was this tiny voice inside me whispering, "Maybe you're being too harsh." I mean, I knew he was flawed. I wasn't blind, but he wasn't always awful. There were moments when he made me tea when I was sick, or played my favorite music when I had a bad day. That's the trap, isn't it? We cling to the crumbs because we're starving for love. But as I lay there with my leg elevated and my heart in pieces, the memories started to sort themselves. And what I saw wasn't love, it was labor, emotional labor, financial labor, mental gymnastics. Richard never took real responsibility. He always had a new excuse, a new idea, a new phase. He was always almost about to change. And me, I was the girl who worked double shifts to cover the rent while he spent hours perfecting his Twitch stream. I paid off his credit card debt. I loaned him money to start a business that turned out to be a failed crypto scheme. I even sold my grandmother's necklace once just to cover rent. And what did I get in return? A 20-minute hospital visit and a social media post mocking me. But here's where the alack loy truly hit. The day after the party photo went up, I started getting messages, not from Richard, from his mom, 43 missed calls, 17 voicemails, all some combination of weeping, blaming, and guilt-tripping. You can't do this to him. He made a mistake, but he loves you. He said you ruined his job opportunity and threw away his collectibles. He's devastated. I just sat there, phone and hand leg throbbing, while this woman who never liked me suddenly begged me to reconsider. Reconsider what exactly? That's when I realized she didn't know. She had no idea what really happened. So I told her I laid it all out, how Richard hadn't paid rent in 3 months, how he used my credit to open cards I didn't even know about, how he took the job because of me, my connections, and how I was the one with the broken bones while he was taking selfies with his ex. She went quiet. Then she said something that almost made me laugh through the pain. He told us you were the one who lost her job, that he was supporting you. I nearly choked on my soup. Supporting me. This man hadn't supported anything but his video game habit in 4 years. But the thing that haunted me most wasn't the lies he told his family. It was the lies I told myself, that he was just figuring it out, that I was strong enough to handle both our burdens, that his silence, his selfishness, his disappearances were somehow my fault. That's the scariest part of being Loch Loy. It's not just about losing someone, it's about losing the version of yourself that used to know better. I used to be someone with boundaries. I used to have standards. I used to be proud of how hard I worked and how much I gave. But with Richard, I gave until there was nothing left of me. That night, lying in Anastasia's guest room, I stared at the ceiling and finally said it out loud. He doesn't love me. He never did. It hit like a punch to the gut, but it was also the first real truth I'd said in weeks. And when I said it, I felt something shift. Tomorrow I'd call the landlord and my brother, and maybe, just maybe, I'd start taking things back. Have you ever stayed in something broken because you were scared of being alone? Because I did. For too long, but something in me was starting to wake up. The day I decided to take my life back didn't start with fireworks. It started with a phone call. I called my landlord. My voice was still shaky. My ribs still ached, but I told him everything. I didn't sugarcoat it. I just said the truth. Richard hasn't paid a dime in 3 months. He's not on the lease. I want him out. To my surprise, the landlord didn't question me. He'd seen the notices pile up. He'd heard Richard's excuses. He even said, "Honestly, I was wondering when you'd finally kick him out." That stung more than I expected. People saw what I didn't, or maybe I just didn't want to see it. Then I called my brother Dylan. I didn't need emotional support. I needed manpower. I told him everything from the accident to the Instagram post to the financial mess Richard had left behind. Dylan didn't say much, just what day and what time. And then we made a plan. 3 days later, with crutches under my arms and fire in my chest, that's exactly what happened to me on my birthday night.
His friends
I was
walked into my
standing there
apartment
in the
and
middle of
started
my own
packing
living
up
room,
every trace
surrounded
of
by
Richard,
people I
every
loved,
sock,
or at
every
least
limited
thought I loved.
edition.
And
Funko
everything
Pop,
felt like it was
every
suspended in
collectible beer
slow
bottle
motion.
he said was aging,
There was
but
music
really
playing,
just stank.
the soft clinking of glasses.
It took 4 hours.
Little bursts
4
of
hours
laughter
to
floating
unearth
in
the
the
life
air.
I had been
And
too
yet,
blind to
in my
question.
head, there was only
There were
silence.
receipts for gaming
I had spent
accessories
weeks
I
planning
never
that
approved,
evening, old
decorating
takeout
the apartment
containers
with
shoved
little
under the
twinkle
bed,
lights,
and of
ordering
course
my
his
favorite
beloved
cake,
throne,
choosing
the
the
gaming chair
perfect
he
playlist,
refused to let
and
me
more
sit
than
in
that,
because
I
it
had
was
spent
ergonomically
weeks planning the
calibrated to his
announcement.
spine.
The
Dylan
secret
lifted
I had
it
been
like a
holding
cursed
so
relic
tightly
and
to my
carried it
chest.
straight
I
to
was
the dumpster.
pregnant.
No yelling,
I thought
no
that
breaking
night was going to
things,
be the
no
beginning of a
revenge,
beautiful new
slashes through his
chapter.
clothes.
Just
Instead,
calm, efficient
it turned
removal,
out to be
like
the start
cutting
of
out
an
a tumor.
unraveling
I
I
kept
never
one
saw
box.
coming. Justin,
Just
my
one,
boyfriend
his
of
birth
3 years,
certificate, social
stood
security
up,
card,
tapped his glass,
a few
and
family
gave this
photos,
speech
some
about how
medical records.
special
I
I
gave
was.
that to the landlord
He
to
looked
hold
me
in
straight
case
in the
Richard
eyes,
ever needed to prove
smiling
his
that
existence.
easy, confident
Everything
smile
else
that used to make
trash.
my heart race.
Where he left me
He handed me
emotionally,
a small,
I returned the
perfectly
favor
wrapped
physically.
box.
My
And
heart
just when I thought I
practically
was
jumped out of
done,
my
I
chest.
remembered the
I
job.
actually thought
The job
maybe
I
he was
had helped him
proposing.
land. He'd be
I even
starting
wondered
next
if
week.
I should still go through
Supposedly,
with the
that
pregnancy
job came
announcement
through my
after a
network.
proposal.
My college
Silly,
roommate's
right?
brother worked
I
at the
opened the
firm,
box
so
with
I made
shaking
another
hands,
call.
everyone
I didn't
leaning
lie.
in,
I didn't
some
embellish.
already recording
I
with
just
their
emailed the
phones.
hiring manager
Inside
some
was
concerning
concerning
facts.
It wasn't
Richard's
anything but a
complete
small
lack of
folded
rental
note.
payment history.
I remember
Screenshots
staring
of his social post mocking his needy girlfriend in the hospital. A summary of the $107,000 in credit card debt I'd taken on trying to cover our shared expenses. I added one line at the end. Would you trust this man to manage your client's retirement funds? They didn't. The fallout came fast. The next morning, my phone blew up again. Not from his mom this time, from Richard himself. First came the fury. Where's my stuff? You can't do this to me. Everything I own is in that apartment. Then came the desperation. Please don't do this. Katie doesn't mean anything to me. I was drunk. I didn't mean what I posted. And finally, the begging, I love you. We can fix this. You're the only one I want. But I didn't answer. Not this time. Instead, I saved the voicemails, documented the texts, and took a long, deep breath that didn't hurt as much as it did yesterday. I was healing slowly, not just my bones, but the parts of me I thought I'd lost forever. When Deborah Richards' mother called again, I was ready. She started off like before crying, guilt-tripping, blaming me for the job loss and the cruelty of throwing out his belongings. But this time, I didn't flinch. I asked her one simple question. Deborah, when was the last time your son paid rent? Silence. Then came the cracks, excuses, confusion, denial, until I laid it all out. My financial records, rent receipts, bank statements. She was stunned, not angry, not defensive, just shaken. For the first time, someone else finally saw the truth. Not just the version Richard told, but the version I lived. It's strange how clarity works. It doesn't always feel like a light bulb. Sometimes it feels like a slow dissolve, like fog lifting from a field, and suddenly there's the road, and I was on it. One step, one crutch, one truth at a time. Have you ever had a moment where you realized you weren't crazy? You were just surviving something quietly? Because that's what this was. Not drama, not overreaction, just survival. And now I was done surviving. I was ready to rebuild. Healing is such a strange thing. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't come with fireworks or some grand revelation. It comes in moments, quiet, stubborn, almost invisible ones, like waking up and realizing you didn't dream about him, or taking a full breath without your ribs screaming, or walking 3 steps without your crutches and thinking, maybe I'm stronger than I thought. After the dumpster day, the job loss, and the voicemail marathon, things got quiet again. But this time, it wasn't the hollow kind of quiet. It was the kind that feels like peace. I started physical therapy twice a week. It was exhausting. I sweated more in those sessions than I ever had at the gym. But each drop of sweat felt like I was wringing the grief out of my body. I was rebuilding, not just my muscles, but myself. I'd been holding on to Richard like he was the only raft in the storm. But now that I'd let go, I realized I could swim. I started seeing a therapist too. Thank you, workplace insurance. It took 3 sessions for me to stop saying, it wasn't that bad. By the 5th session, I could say out loud, he used me. I lost myself. I deserve better. There were days I still felt weak, still doubted myself, but I kept showing up to therapy, to PT, to life. And then something unexpected happened. Deborah, yes, Richard's mother called again, but this time it wasn't 43 missed calls, just one, and she left a message. I'd like to talk if you're willing. No yelling, just woman to woman. I almost didn't call her back, but curiosity won. So I agreed to meet at a little cafe downtown with a ramp for my walking boot, a detail that honestly touched me. Richard never once thought of things like that. Deborah looked older than I remembered, not in a physical way, more like someone whose illusions had finally shattered. She sat across from me and for the first time didn't defend him. She apologized. Not the generic kind, the real kind. She told me she had believed every lie Richard told her, that I was unstable, that I couldn't hold a job, that he was letting me stay in his apartment out of pity, that the car I totaled was his, that I had a spending problem and he was drowning trying to support me. Then she paused and said something I'll never forget. If I raised a man who could do what he did to you, then I failed too. She handed me an envelope. It was filled with cash, $2,000. I froze. This isn't from Richard, she said quickly. This is from me to help start over. It's not enough, but it's something. Because you didn't just lose love, you lost years. And no one's ever said sorry for that, I cried. Not because of the money, because someone finally saw me. I used that money to furnish my new apartment. Nothing fancy, just a new bed, a shelf for plants, a secondhand desk. But it was mine. No memories, no ghosts, no gaming chair in the corner while I scrubbed the kitchen alone. Anastasia helped me pick out curtains. My brother Dylan built my bed frame. My coworker dropped off a basket of Trader Joe's snacks and left a Post-it note that said, "Proud of you." These were the people who showed up, not with grand speeches, but with screwdrivers, snacks, and softness. That's what real love looks like. One afternoon, I stood on my tiny balcony, the sun hitting my shoulders, a little basil plant thriving in a pot, and I realized exactly what happened to me on my birthday night. All day. I was standing there in the middle of my own living room, surrounded by people I loved, like his chaos had finally rinsed off me. And everything I named felt my like new car Freedom Cheesy, motion. I know, but fitting. There was music playing. It wasn't the brand new, clinking of glasses, sparkle, but it little ran, bursts of laughter floating in the air. And every time I slid into the driver's seat, there was only silence. Healing isn't linear. I had spent weeks planning that evening. Some days I missed the idea decorating the apartment with little twinkle lights, ordering my favorite cake, grateful I got out, grateful for the pain because it forced me to wake up. Have you ever mistaken survival for love? I had been holding so tightly to my chest. For 4 years, I was pregnant. But now I know the difference. I thought that night was going to be the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. I kicked Richard out of my life. Instead, and last turned out to be the start of an unraveling I never saw coming. I slept in a bed that wasn't haunted by my boyfriend of 3 years. No echo of him slamming the bathroom door after a petty fight. No half-empty craft beer bottles on the nightstand. He looked no sound of the keyboard clicking until 3 a.m. while I tried to sleep alone in a relationship. Just silence and peace. He handed me a small, my new apartment is smaller, but it has a balcony with morning sun and a view of a little bookstore across the street. Proposing. I planted mint even wondered if I should still go through with the pregnancy announcement after a proposal. And silly, right? I opened like that tomato plant, hands, bent, bruised, everyone leaning in. The cast is off. Recording with their phones. I still walk with inside, a bit of a limp and ring. Physical it wasn't anything but my butt twice a week. Note. But I can remember staring at it. I can carry my own groceries, and I can stand for myself for everything I used to silence to keep a man comfortable. And Richard, well, he tried one last time. He sent me a compost bin. Yes, a literal bin of worms, soil, and food scraps, with a note that said, "Like compost, our love can break down and rebuild into something stronger." Inside was a cheap, clearly recycled ring, one he probably meant to give to his ex. I didn't even cry. I just stared at it and thought, this man really doesn't get it. I texted him one sentence. The compost bin is exactly where our relationship belongs. Then Anastasia, my best friend, my rock dumped it in the trash and filmed it for me. No drama, no threats, just closure. Not long after Richard was arrested, turns out he had unpaid traffic tickets and caused a scene at my old apartment building. He got bailed out by his brother, who, from what I hear, is making him pay rent and work for once in his life. And me, I've stopped looking at his social media. I've stopped checking mutual friends' updates. He's not part of my story anymore. Not really. I bought myself a small celebration cake the day my insurance check cleared, and I bought my new car. It's used, a little scuffed. But I named it Freedom because that's what it gave me. A way to move forward, literally and emotionally. I still go to therapy. I still have bad days, days when I doubt myself, when I wonder how I stayed so long, how I let it get that bad, but now I have answers. I stayed because I believed love meant sacrifice. Because I thought if I just gave more loved harder, he'd become someone better. Because I thought being needed was the same as being valued. I was wrong. But I'm not ashamed anymore because I walked through that fire and I came out honest, whole, and entirely mine. Last week, Deborah, the woman who once begged me to reconsider ruining her son's life, took me to lunch again. She didn't cry this time. She thanked me. She said, "You showed me who he really is and who I've been enabling. Thank you for walking away." I didn't know what to say. But in that moment, I realized sometimes healing doesn't look like revenge. It looks like letting go and letting others face what they've created. And now I sit by my window each morning with coffee and my plants, I light a candle, and I say a small, quiet promise to myself. Never again will I shrink to fit into someone else's comfort zone. To anyone listening, especially you, the woman sitting on your bathroom floor right now, wondering if you're asking for too much. You're not wanting respect is not being needy. Needing support is not being dramatic. Being hurt doesn't make you too sensitive. It makes you human. So I'll ask you this from one survivor to another. If you were me, what would you have done? Would you have thrown his life into a dumpster? Would you have said yes to the compost ring, or would you finally, for the first time in forever, say yes to yourself?